Welcome, it's great to have you. Welcome back. I hope you had a great summer. It feels like time just flies by the moment. Have you noticed that? I'm particularly finding that I'm thinking, gosh, we've had a son's birthday. I've managed to put up a shed, and we've hung around as family, and now we're back at school, and it's gone very, very quickly. Today's verse today, I wanted to encourage you as we move forward, because I feel that many of us, maybe me included, have felt actually we'd secretly hoped that when we come back to school in September, when we thought about stuff happening back in August and back in March and April, that life would kind of come back to normality, and it hasn't. And so I want to take this verse and unpack it slightly for you to feel grounded as we move forward. So the verse that we're looking at is Joshua 1 verse 9. It's a really, really good verse. It's a verse that I grew up with. It was the first verse that somebody gave me as a young Christian. And it's really had a powerful impact on my life. So let's read it. Joshua 1 verse 9. You find it in the Old Testament, and it's under the book of Joshua. This is God speaking. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Let me read that again. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. It's a great verse. And it was spoken to Joshua, who was taken over from Moses as the leader of God's chosen people. Remember, they'd gone out of Egypt, they wandered around in the desert. They'd had a slight punishment for not following in the first place to go into the promised land. And as a result, they've done their 40 years, and now Moses has died and Joshua has been appointed as leader over the Israelites to take them into the promised land. It's a new beginning for Joshua. It's a big change for Joshua, quite a big responsibility to make sure that he is following what God says, being obedient, and leading the people in a way that shows respect and passes them in a way that they feel part of the journey and that they are being obedient to God themselves. As well as leading Hamilton Vineyard Church, I'm also a part-time teacher. And so in the past and now, it's really interesting coming up to September, where September can often be a place of new beginnings. It's a place where you get all your new exercise books and you've got the clean pages, and everybody comes in with their new pencil case or their new bags, and they've got all the stories of the summer. You may meet some new pupils, maybe you've got a new tutor group. It's an exciting time. I used to love it, and I still do, even in the midst of the pandemic that we find ourselves in at the moment. We are moving forward into a new time. Who would have thought that this time last year we would have to be wearing masks going into shops? We would have to be wearing masks going to the cinema, and the cinemas could not be full. You would have to be careful about how many people you were hanging out with, how you washed your hands, whether or not some of us have been ill, and therefore the concern about our health and our family's health. There's been times in the last 6 months where we haven't met our family or seen our family for months and months in a physical element and only online. And that's been really challenging. And for some of us who don't have families, we found ourselves isolated, and that's been really lonely. So how are we going to move in to this last part of 2020 with all the stuff, all the emotional baggage that's gone before? Well, I think it's really interesting if we look at this verse. For me, I'm going to pick out two things that God speaks to Joshua about. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not be terrified, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Now, the interesting thing is that Joshua had a past, and his past was that he'd been here before. He'd been sent out from Moses to go and spy out the land and see whether or not it was going to be a place that would work for the Israelites and what things they were going to have to look out for. And he came back saying how amazing the land was going to be. It was flowing with milk and honey. And yes, there were people who were quite big and large and were going to be difficult to overcome. There were some giants. But Joshua's view and Caleb's view, who was his friend who went with him, their view was that God was going to go with them and it was going to be a place where they were going to overcome. The other spies had gone out and come back and had been full of fear of the things that they were no longer going to be able to do. It was going to be too much of an ask. They felt like it was going to be a waste of time, and it was because of these giants, there was no way they were going to overcome them. So for Joshua, it's interesting that God speaks here about not being discouraged. Are you feeling discouraged at the moment? What is going on in your life? What happened in the last 6 months or the last year or the last 10 years that maybe even is working on you now? What is making you discouraged? And the thing is that not only when we talk about being discouraged, but discouragement leads to fear. When we're feeling discouraged, there's an element that we therefore take what's in the past and almost place it on the future, which is interesting because God then says, not only did he say to Joshua, don't be discouraged, but he also says, do not be terrified. And I think with the situation that we find ourselves at the moment, it's very easy to be full of fear of what's going to happen next. Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to have the kids back again because there's been an outbreak and schools locally have closed down? Am I going to be ill? Am I going to have health concerns? Is somebody in my family going to be ill? And the fear of the unknown starts to grapple with us because of our experiences of what's gone before, because we've been discouraged, because we've seen people get hurt, or because we've been in relationships that haven't worked out, or because we've lost jobs in the past, or because we've had people who we've known that have been really dear to us and they've died. And I want to encourage you today with this verse, that God says, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So we have this element of not being discouraged and in the past, of what's happened in the past affecting us, and also that element of fear of what's going to happen in the future. And what he says is, and he grounds us in the present by saying, I am with you. Whatever happens, I am with you. Be courageous. Be strong. How to do that in a world where people are full of fear and they are disappointed and disillusioned by things that have gone before? Well, for us, Jesus is our strength. Jesus comes to us, and by his Spirit we find our strength, our boldness, our courage. We ask the Spirit to fill our faith up so that as we look forward, we're not looking forward in fear, but we're looking forward with the anticipation that God is going to be with us in every situation that we find ourselves in. And yes, unfortunately, some of those situations are going to be tough and they're going to hurt and there's going to be pain. However, God does not leave us. So as we move into the end of this year, let's remember that God calls us to be courageous and bold. That we don't need to be terrified. That we don't need to be discouraged. Because He, the Lord our God, is with us. Hi guys, it's so good to have you this morning, whether it be on Facebook or on Zoom. We are Hemel Vineyard Church, and we're just doing life together as we follow Jesus. If you want to be part of that journey, then feel free to come and join us, whether it be on Zoom, again on Facebook next week, or drop us a line and have a conversation with us. We'd love to hear from you. Another place you can find out what's going on would be to check out our website, which is www.hemelvineyard.org.uk. I pray this week that you would know Jesus' love and His presence with you in whatever you face. See you next week. Bye.